Matt Rhule hasn't even coached a game for the Cornhuskers yet, but this, Blair, would be a massive win. Why?
Well, it would obviously give them a huge boost, not only to land a legacy recruit, but to land a quarterback, to land a cornerstone, to land the face of what could be the program for the years to come. So I've said it time and time again, Emily, this is probably the most important recruit for any school, for any program in the country. Dylan Raiola to Nebraska, he's that big for the Cornhuskers.
That's why we have him number one. And for more on the top prospect, let's welcome in our friend Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting. Steve, Raiola was in Lincoln on Saturday. That's why we're talking about him. He was taken in a hoops game. Of course, the current dead period meant no meeting with Rhule. But what did Dylan say about his visit and his upcoming plans?
Yeah, and the reason why he was able to go, just for people that don't know, is his uncle's the offensive line coach at Nebraska. And it was a boys' trip to go see family. His little brother, Dylan Raiola, was there. His dad, and they had a trip to the basketball game where he said, I've never experienced anything close to that. Those fans are the best. They've always showed my family love. It means a lot. It's a blessing to be able to experience these fans at these games. They always show out for their Husker sports, and it's a great sight to see. And we know Nebraska, they travel for away games as well as any program in the country. They are starved to win. And I think that Matt Rhule is going to win regardless, but to get to land a player of the caliber of Dylan Raiola, that's a national championship caliber signal caller right there under center. Those guys are rare. And he's told me that Matt Rhule wants to win right now, and he wants to do it the right way. He's not going to cut corners. He's going to build it from the ground up. And you saw a really terrific 2023 class for Nebraska, and they put a lot into this Dylan Raiola recruitment. Matt Rhule went by the school. Then the next week, 9 assistant coaches went by the school in January. There's no question the Huskers have a lot of momentum in this recruitment. I think that Dylan Raiola is taking a heat check on other blue chippers and their interest in Nebraska. And his dad was blown away this weekend. Obviously, he's in Nebraska, one of the greatest players to ever suit up at Nebraska. His numbers retired, and he was just blown away at the moment that his son had there on campus. He was so proud. But they're gonna be back in Nebraska on the 25th. Georgia's going to get the next visit. He talks to Mike Bobo every day. Lincoln Riley, they visited at the end of January. He talks to Lincoln Riley every day. So even though Nebraska definitely has a lot of momentum, they still have some challengers on the trail.
Yeah, Nebraska, Georgia, formerly committed to Ohio State, and we mentioned USC being 3 of the schools that are named and mentioned the most for Dylan Raiola, and he would bring a lot on the field, Steve. But when you think about the recruiting impact on and off the field that a Dylan Raiola could have for Nebraska, why is he so important?
Well, Nebraska, under Matt Rhule, they're never going to be a program that's enamored by stars. They're going to be one of the first programs to offer guys. That's going to be their trait. They have a very thorough evaluation process led by Omar Hales off the field, but the coaches are very involved in that, and they find guys with traits and upside, and they love to develop those guys. Now, they're certainly going to be in the mix for several blue chippers, but I still think the recipe is going to overall be the same. I think that we'll see Nebraska, if they were to land Dylan Raiola, maybe land a few other top 247 prospects, but I think once we see their class in December and February, we look up and down it. We're like, well, maybe we should have that guy ranked higher. Maybe we should have that guy ranked higher. Maybe we should have that guy ranked higher, because they just do a fantastic job of finding great high school football players that other programs just aren't on.
All right, the dead period does not mean that the crystal ball stopped for you. You just put one in for Texas to land the aforementioned Jerrick Gibson out of IMG Academy. And for those keeping track at home, this would be the second straight year the Longhorns have gone into Florida and landed the top back. They just did it last year with Cedric Baxter. Steve, what has you favoring Sark and company in this recruitment?
Yeah, talking to Jerrick and talking to his dad this week, and talking to his dad a little bit last week as well. We're going to have a feature on the 24/7 Sports Network later on this week on Jerrick, which lets people know what kind of young man and player he is. But Texas is no question blown him away to date in this process. Tashard Choice, Texas's running backs coach, was one of the first coaches to offer Gibson a scholarship. They have a fantastic relationship, and Choice House has a fantastic relationship with Jerrick's family. Steve Sarkisian is recruiting this young man as hard as anybody he recruited on the board last cycle too. So, and you guys know they landed number 1, Arch Manning. So Texas is not being out recruited for Jerrick Gibson. He's enjoyed his time in Austin. He's going to go back for the spring game on an unofficial, and then he's going to take his official in June. there's some other contenders. Tennessee is a program that I'm certainly not taking lightly in this one as well. They really like Coach Mack and Coach Heupel and the straightforward approach. They love the offense. They love the trajectory of the program. And then Georgia's going to get an official the first week of June, and they can't be slept on. Jerrick really likes Georgia. Their program is probably sitting in the 3 position, but we've seen Del McGee and the Bulldogs rally for blue chippers before. Alabama's getting official the second weekend. Obviously, he loves the accolades and tradition of Alabama under Nick Saban, and it's going to go to Miami in June as well. So Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes still swinging.
We mentioned that the recruiting dead period is winding down, and one of those prospects that is now shifting his focus to recruiting is 5-star athlete Mike Matthews. Steve, who are some of the schools that are on the radar, and our understanding is he still has not scheduled any official visits yet?
Yeah, I talked to his mom last week. They weren't scheduling any visits until he was done with the basketball season. I know that he loved his visit to USC a couple months ago and is excited to get back out there and spend more time with Dante Williams, Lincoln Riley and company. He had a fantastic visit to Tennessee in January, also attended their win over Alabama. The Tennessee program and the culture really stands out to Matthews and his mom. And they're recruiting him as a wideout as well. He can play whatever he wants for them, but they just landed J.J. Harrell. They'd like to get Ryan Wingo in their position well for Mike Matthews. So that could be a heck of a receiver haul for Tennessee. But Clemson, Georgia, some of the other schools swinging. Alabama, he's been there a couple times. Those are the other schools that he's high on.
All right, we have 125 people watching. First off, during the dead period, this is awesome. You guys clearly love the recruiting content, but we only have 35 likes. So please hit that like button if you are watching the video. Steve's given the 2 thumbs up. That's what the like button looks like. So he gave you a nice little key for what to smash. All right, 2024 4-star running back Kevin Riley has some top programs chasing him down. You see him chasing down with the football, but he is the number 7 back in the class. He's got a few visits lined up. What's the latest with his recruitment, Steve?
Yeah, there's a school, he's looking at several big-time programs right now. He's one of the most coveted running backs in the SEC. He's going to take a visit to Auburn. He's going to return to Auburn in June, and that's a program that I kind of have a really close eye on for him right now. And Auburn, we have not seen them land touted players in years. And I talked to a source in the state that said, Hugh Freeze is killing it in state. He's going to be a problem for Alabama in state due to they're going to be so aggressive about things, and they got kids loving it. And all the kids that visit like Auburn and Freeze coupled with the person before, they said a different word. He was so bad that Freeze coming in, whatever he's doing is magnified. He's doing a wonderful job, but it's magnified. He's so much better than the other guy and so much more welcoming. And so he's built a good relationship with Cadillac Williams and the Auburn staff. And there's a lot of in-state guys looking at Auburn, but he's going to be making the rounds and is one of the most coveted players in the SEC. So they'll have a lot of competition. But it's an exciting time to be an Auburn fan.
And staying in the SEC, Steve, Bryce Underwood is one of the better quarterbacks in the 2025 class. Supposed to head down to LSU this weekend. It's early in his recruitment. He's got a long way to go before pen meets paper. But what can you tell us about the recruitment of Bryce Underwood at this stage?
Yeah, he's going to visit LSU this week. He's going to get down there on Thursday and spend all day on campus on Friday. And this is a visit that he's been looking forward to since the process began. When you talk to his old high school coach and you talk to his parents, they've been talking up LSU for a long time. And Joe Sloan, LSU's quarterbacks coach, is already building a great relationship with Bryce. And he's going to be attached to his hip all week this week when he gets down to Baton Rouge. He'll get some time with Brian Kelly, Mike Denbrock, and the staff. But he just loves the tradition of LSU, Death Valley, the excitement around that program, the night games, the tradition, guys like Joe Burrow coming out of there. And he thinks the program's on the rise with guys like Brian Kelly leading that program, who he's familiar with, obviously, from his time at Notre Dame. I think that LSU, he is not named favorites. Bryce Underwood is not named any favorites, but there's no doubt in my mind that if he did, LSU would be near the top of his list. Ohio State's another program that he visited back in December, I believe, and he really enjoyed that visit. He sees himself in C.J. Stroud, loves Ryan Day's offense, and him and Coach Dennis and Coach Hartline and the offense that they produce year in and year out. So Ohio State has definitely moved the needle. And he had a great visit to Penn State in January. He wants to get back to Ohio State and Michigan for spring practices, his dad told me. But this is an exciting visit to LSU. They can't wait to get down there and spend a lot of time with the Bayou Bengals.
No Tigers fans love to hear that, and stick around. We actually have more LSU talk on the way, but as we've said, today is the final day of the dead period, which means college campuses are coming alive this weekend, hosting lots of prospects. Norman, I hear, will be hopping. So who are some big names to look out for visiting Oklahoma this weekend?
Well, Oklahoma doesn't have a commit yet, but the class that Brent Venables and company had last year, we know that when all said and done, they're going to boast one of the best classes in the cycle. And one of their most coveted players, regardless of position, is our top-ranked defensive lineman, Williams Nwaneri, who was offered last January, has already built a great relationship with Coach Chavis and Coach Bates, and of course Brent Venables. And look, we've said this many times, Oklahoma's defense ranked 129th nationally this year. They recruited amazing on that side of the ball in 2023, and Brent Venables and company is all in trying to add more difference makers here in 2024 because we know he is not accustomed to running out one of the worst defenses in college football. There's no question Williams Nwaneri has Oklahoma near the top of his list. I think Oregon, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Missouri are some of the other schools that are in there. It's early for him. He's going to visit Colorado for the spring game, but Oklahoma, I imagine they're going to make a big move with him this weekend. Kobe Black's a 5-star cornerback from Connolly, Texas. I'm told earlier in the week by a source that he could be in Norman this weekend. He's one of the most coveted corners in the country. He's been to Texas a couple times. The Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian have been able to make an impression, but Oklahoma was one of his first offers as well. Brent Venables personally gave it to him, and he's leading the charge on that one as well.
Awesome, Steve. Appreciate it. I hear you're sticking around in the chat, so if you have any questions for him, please submit them. And the only way that you can do that is if you are subscribed to the YouTube page. And starting next week, new episodes of the Wiltfong Whip Around dropping every Monday and Friday on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel.